was like, okay, I need to realign my soul. And then I'm bringing all of this insight into the academic space, into the activism space. I began to question even ideas around punitive measure.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Philosopher's Corner podcast. I'm your host, Dominique Driding, and today I am joined by the incredible Dr. Toyin Ajao, also known as Moon Goddess, also known as Gypsy Orisha, also known as Dr. Witch. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dominique. My supreme leader. Let me add that into the room. Thank you for the invite.
I'm sure most of our audience will be wondering, where do all of these names come from? Can you tell us a little bit about how you have named yourself and renamed yourself over time?
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's a long journey into self-discovery, soul alignment, and inner transformation for me. And over time, exploring the world, traveling, learning, healing myself, I just woke up one day, I was like, oh, I'm a gypsy, in terms of being an explorer and alchemist. Then I was like, I'm a witch. And the witch, not in the way that the colonialists had told us, told us we were. I saw it as being a powerful, rooted goddess in the universe. And that knowledge itself just sat with me. And I was like, oh, that's what being a witch is about. Then that goddess came in as well. So I was like, that means this knowing thyself makes me a goddess, a powerful, feminine and masculine, energy all combined. And this is powerful for me. So I went gypsy, witch, goddess. And over time, my role began to, diverge and converge again. So how it diverged was the gypsy. I kept on exploring. I kept on learning. And one day, somebody just called me. A friend said, Gypsy Orisha. So I was like, oh, Orisha in my language means deity. I was like, oh, the alchemist deity. Thank you for seeing me, So I was like, I'm bringing that in. And that's a standalone name for all these explorations, alchemy, energy, and just finding, just the curiosity, So then I finished my PhD. I was like, no, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor witch because
I'm a Dr. Witch.
I'm an intellectual. I am an intellectual. I'm a woman. I shine. And I know my shit. Don't excuse my French. So, so I was like, I'm going to show up with that energy. And when people ask me, I can tell them that, look, witchcraft, even in Yoruba cosmology, are custodian of order, of fertility, of wisdom. Women had that role. But then colonialism came, Eurocentric idea, and the witchcraft arts came, and women became blood-sucking, and women, mostly other women who are supposed to be the sage in the community. So now poverty joined, and then, relegation of role joined. And so if anything happened to these women, maybe they were psychotic or anything, who is blood-sucking, who is making somebody, poverty affecting somebody's health. I'm like, you know what? I want to be a conversation starter as well. To claim being, intelligence, to claim the fatherdom of my people as well, and to be able to stand in of witchcraft. So I claim that doctor. And I entered this space of restorative healing. Then the moon. So moon goddess in the sense that if I go with the Gregorian astrology, I'm Cancer and my house, and I'm a water element. So water, the fluidity of that, water is a goddess in itself. Yemoja in Yoruba mythology, the ruler of the oceans, the energy. Don't let me, hierarchy doesn't work for me as well. The energy of the ocean. And then the moon, the waxing and the waning, the oceans. And part of what, I think I want to say now, patriarchy. part of what patriarchy had done was to criminalize and demonize emotions. Women are emotional, men are rational, and we are all interconnected. Our nervous system feel all this. The gender they give you doesn't mean you don't have your emotions. If questions are to be asked, look at all the words in the world. Men are causing all of these. The violence that is raging, isn't that emotion? The anger is emotion. But they put it under some logic of, nation defense, nationalism, fascism, and they justify all of that. So I'm like, the moon is telling a lot of story, waxing, waning, these emotions, the phases of it. And I felt all of that during my own healing journey. And when I'm in spaces where I'm inviting people to be vulnerable, I want them to see a goddess who has the energy of the moon, who herself is healing, and who is rooted in her power because she is fluid as the water. So all of that became the identity that kind of converged, depending on how I'm showing up and where. Yes. That's a long introduction. You're welcome.
I love that so much. And I feel like I would never have been able to do justice to that beautiful explanation if I had read a bio. So thank you so much for sharing, because I feel like I even learned more about you from that introduction. So thank you. I also wanted to tell our audience that in preparation for this episode, I have been dreaming about this episode as soon as Thomas was like, let's start a podcast. And I was like, immediately, Toyin needs to be on this podcast. So I have been thinking about, all of the many things that we can talk about. But one of the things that I was sort of ruminating on in that preparation was the fact that we've known each other for 11 years this year. It completely blows my mind. And to let our audience know how Toyin and I met was it was in 2015, the beginning of 2015, and I was on my way to a scholarship application, like a scholarship interview, and Toyin and I happened to be in the same cab, and I was reading from the airport to the location where this interview would be happening. And I was reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and Toyin and I ended up getting into the deepest, most sort of fulfilling and enriching conversation in that car ride to the accommodation. And we had never met before. And it was almost as though, like, in that moment, I knew that I'd met a soul sister, we have been walking our sort of very distinctive paths, I feel like very much in parallel, and have found these moments of connecting and coming together. And I'm just so grateful to be speaking to you today. Thank you.
Because it wasn't even the book alone. It was the conversation and the depth of what we had to say to one another, And sometimes even our conversation was feeling like, get out of my head. If you remember, like, just get, I'm having brain gasm now. Just so I'm so glad and grateful to where we've landed now, and all the growth and transformations have happened along the way. And the fact that you are my supreme leader, if you want me to explain why to your audience, I'm happy to. Yeah. Oh, you are. You are my supreme leader. So we have a forest tribe where Dominic, her brother Keegan, and another friend Sarah, we had gone cruising around South Africa, and we spent a lot of time in some wonderful forests hiking. And then the connection and the energy made us give ourselves different roles. And that moment, because she was the one leading, coordinating, an incredible leadership energy. And we're like, this is supremacy, but on the level of spirituality. So we call her Supreme Leader. And I'm sure I started that. I started that name. And then the rest of us had our names as well. But that stuck because your energy, when it comes to how you contribute to the word, how you show up, and your soul itself, it speaks to all of that. It's so sublime not to be given that name. So my Supreme Leader, kisses and much love to you. Yes.
Thank you. Um, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, and you've sort of touched on it as we have sort of started this conversation, started weaving, is the transformation that you've gone through, maybe from that point that we met to get
Yes.
to this point.
Yes.
For those of you
Yeah.
who don't know, and I would love you to talk about your work in a little bit more detail in a little bit, but Toyin has started an incredible organization called Imole of Africa Center, also known as iAfrica,
Yes.
which
Mm,
is really committed to sort of doing the interpersonal work
mm.
to then
Thank
enable
you so
systems
much.
change.
That's like a huge question. Because I think my journey had been really very fascinating, if I may say so myself. But at the beginning of all this, going through the journey of life, I didn't see it that way because growing up, I had so much questions that nobody was answering within like the religious space, the patriarchal space, the way I was brought up with my mom not really seeming and nurturing me the way I think my soul would have loved, which is part of what I'm telling. Like many people want to listen to how to parent differently. I think growing up, I was beaten for everything. For a very long time, it's been part of the conversation you and I had, thinking I was the mistake. When I make mistakes, the way they make me feel is I was the mistake. As a child, you're supposed to be guided, but then you make a mistake or something that's not even a mistake. It's just that you don't know. You are beaten for it. I was beaten in school and I went to Arabic school as well. Beaten in Arabic school, beaten in Western school, beaten at home, everything beaten. That was not safe space for me. So I became, a survivor who just wants to like become so studious, to leave home, to have like my independence from that kind of environment. And again, because so many spaces I go to, the way they talk about girls, women, I have so many questions and I couldn't ask at home. So they become part of a resistance for me. Like I recall listening somewhere where they were saying, feminism is Eurocentric. They brought it to Africa. I said, I was a feminist as a child, though. I didn't even know that was a term like that. I got to the university and I started reading about women's movements. I was like, oh shit, people have done this because I wasn't exposed to that. I was just this girl who knew oppressive system is wrong. And she was there feeling it and surviving it the best way she could, being angry over a lot of things. If I don't want my mom to beat me, for example, I will not eat. So now I do a lot of intermittent fasting because my body had been used to just starving myself. I didn't even know that people have this hunger strike. I've been doing hunger strike as a child. If I just want to be left alone, yes, I've been doing hunger strike as a child. And growing up, I use all of these tools of I just want to leave home education, being angry if I need to get myself from a place that is not serving me because I had what I called my anger. I won't go out to offend people, but if you do something I don't like, I can be very reactive. But when you begin to grow up and move through life, you will see that some of these coping mechanisms might not work anymore. Like if you're angry in places where you're supposed to have conversation with a friend, they don't understand what's going on. Then you've jeopardized that relationship because you are not listening. You don't want to hear their point of view and all of that. And as I was moving more into the word, I was seeing a lot of patriarchal, treatments, the way the system was not supportive of women. Like I could recall when I was doing student unionism, in my hometown, and some men, male students have come to me to contest for presidency. And I was like, oh, why not? I'm capable. I'm articulate. I know my shit. I question things, and I am an efficient, coordinator. Then I started campaigning. And boys and young men said to my face, we can't vote for you, you're a woman. University level, I've not even moved to the national politics yet. So, I was seeing all of these discriminations right in my face. And being in religious, circle as well, what they say about women and how we have to be submissive. And in my head, as a studious child, I had a plan. I want to have my freedom. I want to collaborate with others. I don't want to be subservient to anybody. Why should that exist? But then nobody is answering the questions. Even at some point, I converted to Christianity, and they would tell me when I ask questions that God knows best. And I'm like, no, we should be able to critically reason this out. But I didn't still have the tools. I was just navigating all of this on my own, reading as much as I could. And then relationship became tougher with, romantic relationship, breaking down, having fractures with friends, and the way it was affecting me. And by the time I started recognizing that I needed to do something, I started meditation, I think 2009. And by that time, it's been 6 years since I lost my mom. And I'd walked away from my family because the dysfunctionality and what they showed me, I was practically on my own. I don't recall anybody in my family giving me their condolences. They just did the burial like it's their own, thing to do. Even though I've been taking care of my mom when she was sick, I felt so left alone, and I felt I had no sense of belonging with anybody. I don't feel seen and supported. And I didn't know that had become part of what I was carrying as anger. This experience was living in my body. And then by 2009, I was married for 2 years then. I've been, throwing a lot of tantrum in my marriage because then I'm divorced now. But by then, my partner, who I would describe as passive aggressor, and me active aggressor. Can you imagine? Yeah, it was just go quiet about things, and silent treatment would begin. And me, I'm losing my shit. And then the entire thing and the fact that other things didn't just work out. And I realized that I couldn't just live this way anymore. Being angry at everything in the interpersonal spaces, ruminating a lot about things, being angry a lot, not feeling safe in the world because I didn't have sense of safety growing up. I didn't feel safe in the world. Even all the ideas, the program in my head about black magic, about the world is not safe, and about all this patriarchal thing, you just are in this world for men. And I'm like, no, shouldn't be in this world for men. I recall when, I was 11 years old when I first felt the urge to ask a guy out, a boy. And I wrote a letter, which I didn't give to him. I later told him it's a long story. But then there was that thing of you are a girl, you cannot ask out anybody. And in my head, why? Why can't I? Why can't I do all of that? But then you see the backlash when you do it. Because once in secondary school, I wrote to somebody that I wanted them, and it got out and people gang up against me for toasting a guy. You understand? So the backlash is as if you are doing something against the society. So when I was seeing all of that, and it was becoming so much in my heart, I started meditation in 2009. And this meditation was unraveling things. It was like, as I was meditating, I now realized, oh shit, I was a tornado. My energy was always charged for action. Defend yourself. I'm not even sleeping with 2 eyes closed. It's like, just be, you're surviving basically. And then meditation calmed that energy for a bit. And by 2012, I joined the African Leadership Center program where you and I will meet in 2015. And I was in London. And then the exposure within that space of mentorship, of deep critical conversations, took me back to my university days where I first encountered, gender and leadership, feminism, and I did, student politics. And then I'm in this space where we went deeper within, independent thinking, critical thinking, your agency. And I was like,
a word like this exist?